make note of it, but I don't recall either.
If Ms. Heard had visible injuries, is that something that you would have documented in your nursing notes?
I would assume so.
Do you recall Ms. Heard seeking any medical treatment from you when you saw her on March 9th, 2015?
I don't recall.
If Ms. Heard had sought medical treatment from you on that date, is that something you would have documented in your notes?
Perhaps. If there were requests for medical treatment that differed from sort of day-to-day status, then yes, I might have put it in my notes if I hadn't discussed with Dr. Kipper, but I don't make any reference to it in this particular note.
Could we please pull up what should be in, I think I would have uploaded as document B. It bears the base numbers Pilati 0134.
Is it 14?
I think we covered this before, but just to confirm, is this your email up at the top that says erinbourne@hotmail.com? I'm sorry, did you respond?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Okay. I'd like to direct your attention down to this email from David Kipper on March 9th, 2015. That starts out, Erin, love you too much. Do you recognize this email?
I believe I produced this in reference to the subpoena.
Do you recall receiving this email?
I don't recall, but I do remember reviewing this. I don't think I reviewed it in preparation for today, but probably at the time of the document request. I think I probably reviewed this.
Directing your attention to the middle of the email, do you see where it says, I'm sure JD will let her know we are coming home. I want her to please not see him for a few days until we can get him organized with the hand surgeon and get his meds balanced. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And JD refers to Mr. Depp in this instance?
Yes.
And the her is Ms. Heard?
Yes.
Did you have an understanding at the time as to why Dr. Kipper didn't want Ms. Heard to see Mr. Depp for a few days?
I don't recall exactly. This might have been in reference to Australia when they, meaning Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, were separated. I would have to check the dates on that.
Well, turning back to your notes where Ms. Heard was returning from Australia on March 9th, 2015, does that orient you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that would be the same time period.
Okay. And you alluded to an understanding that Dr. Kipper wanted Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard separated?
Yes.
And why didn't you, what was your understanding as to why they should be separated?
I don't recall specifics. I wasn't present in Australia at that time. I just remember a general sense of a big argument happening and the treatment team deciding that they should not be around each other. So Ms. Heard returned to Los Angeles and Mr. Depp stayed in Australia for how long, I don't recall.
Next bit here says, please use the excuse that Dr. Kipper insists that JD stay quiet without any distraction for the rest of the week while we get his medications organized and balanced. None of this will be accepted by her, but I will be very upset. You can tell her this if there is any stress created by a visit that's premature. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you have any understanding as to why Dr. Kipper was directing you to provide this excuse to Ms. Heard?
Again, just the general sense that there was a major argument in Australia, which I wasn't present for, and separating because of that.
Did you have any understanding as to why Dr. Kipper stated that none of this will be accepted by Ms. Heard?
I would be speculating on that, but you know, we used joking terminology.
Based on your experience treating Ms. Heard at this time in March of 2015, would you agree, or did you agree with Dr. Kipper that Ms. Heard would not accept not seeing Mr. Depp for a period of time?
I don't know specifically. As I think we talked about much earlier this morning, there was generally a sense of arguing, reconciling, and that sort of cycle happening frequently throughout their relationship.
If we could please go back to the nursing notes, which are Exhibit 2. Could we please go back to the entries from March 2015 that are on the page with the base number 16952? Now, we covered this earlier, but it says in your March 9, 2015 entry, it says client states she would like to discuss recent events between her and husband with RN in private tomorrow. Do you see that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Directing your attention to the entry for March 10th, 2015. It says RN met client at home at 1600. Does that refresh your recollection that you did meet with her the next day?
No, it doesn't refresh my recollection. However, I would refer to my nursing note.
Do you have any reason to doubt that these notes are accurate?
No.
Do you recall what Ms. Heard showed any injuries to you on that at that time?
No, I don't recall any injuries.
Okay. Can we go back to Exhibit 2, which is the nursing notes, and specifically the entry for March 25th, 2015. Just go back up to the top of this entry for March 25th, please. And I just want to ask you about one more part of this. It says, states she is concerned about ability to trust fiance following argument on March 23rd, 2015. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Heard expressing concern about her ability to trust Mr. Depp?
I would say I have a generalized memory of there being, as I stated before, jealousy and anxiety issues, including mistrust within the relationship.
Do you recall Ms. Heard ever telling you that she thought Mr. Depp was cheating on her?
No, I don't recall that specifically. I just, as I've said, have a general sense of remembering jealousy being an issue.
If we could, okay, I think, do you recall talking about visiting Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp for Thanksgiving earlier today?
Yes.
Does anything stand out in your mind as from that Thanksgiving dinner that you can recall?
Nothing really stands out other than it was, I sort of have a general sense of it being a really jovial, fun time together.
Do you recall how long you stayed at the dinner?
Not specifically, I would assume a few hours.
Could we please just quickly go to the note from November? This is in Exhibit 2, and then entry for November 26, 2015, which is on page 16954.
Please stand by.
Ms. Filati, directing your attention to the entry for November 26, 2015. You recall seeing this entry earlier today?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that this is the entry from the Thanksgiving dinner that you spent with Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp?
I believe it is.
Do you see in the middle where it says JD appeared calm and coherent?
I do.
Is that accurate to your recollection of that evening?
Again, I don't remember that specifically, but I just remember a general sense of it being a fun, happy evening.
So this is consistent with your recollection of that evening?
I would make that assumption.
And you have no reason to doubt the accuracy of your note, correct? Directing your attention to the December 17th, 2015 entry. Will you just take a minute and read this over and confirm whether strike that. Do you recall going and visiting Ms. Heard on December 17th, 2015?
I remember in so much as my nursing notes regarding this night. I can't say that I recall much more than I have here, but I do remember visiting her.
It says here that the client had visible bright red blood appearing at center of lower lip. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you, other than the blood on Ms. Heard's lip, do you recall seeing any other injuries to her on that date?
I don't recall other than what I state.
Do you recall examining Ms. Heard's lip at all?
I don't think I examined it other than a visual examination. I didn't physically examine her lip.
The note says here, client also stated her head is bruised and that she lost clumps of hair in altercation. RN briefly looked at client's scalp, but was unable to visualize hematomas client had described. Is that what you wrote in your note?
Yes.
If you had observed the bruises or hematomas that Ms. Heard had described, would that have been reflected in your note?
Would assume, but again, I'm not trained in looking for those types of injuries, which is why my note continues that I encourage her to be seen by a professional that is trained to do so.
Can we drop down to the next page? And this is just the end portion of this note. It says here, RN reminds client to hydrate with oral fluids and to limit abstain from alcohol. Client was consuming red wine when with RN left, but assured RN she would consume in moderation. Is that what you wrote in your note?
It is, and I believe I miswrote there. Probably it should say client was consuming red wine when RN left, not with, just to clarify.
Why would you advise Ms. Heard on this occasion to limit, or why did you advise Ms. Heard to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion?
I don't recall why I would be speaking to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion.
To confirm, based on your nursing notes, you were aware that Ms. Heard claimed to have been injured by Mr. Depp in December of 2015, right?
Correct.
And you went and actually saw her shortly after that alleged incident, correct?
Not that same day, but possibly the following day, I believe.
And you, on that occasion, you observed that she had a bloody lip, correct?
Correct.
And she told you that that was a result of the altercation with Mr. Depp, right?
Right.
If she had had any other injuries on that occasion, would you have recorded them in your nursing notes?
Make that assumption based upon my other notes that reference the blood on her lip.
Could we go back to Exhibit 2 in the nursing notes for April 21st, 2016? Which actual page number? Which is on page number 16957. Where it says, RN socialized with JD for 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable, thought process logical and clear. Do you have any reason to doubt that that's accurate? That's an accurate description of Mr. Depp on that date?
Jessica, I apologize. Can you just use your cursor to help me see the note that you were just reading?
Sorry, I actually don't have control of it, but it's down towards the middle. It says RN socialized with JD at times 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable.
Oh, yes, I see it. Thank you.
Thought process logical and clear. Yes. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your question regarding that?
Do you have any reason to doubt that that's an accurate description of how Mr. Depp appeared to you on April 21st, 2016?
I have no reason to doubt it. I would stand by my notes.
You knew that Mr. Depp was being treated for substance abuse issues by Dr. Kipper and Nurse Deputy Lloyd, correct?
Yes.
If Mr. Depp had appeared intoxicated on this occasion, is that something that you would have documented?
If it had been outwardly visible for either client, I would have made reference to that.
If we could go back to the nursing notes, Exhibit 2, please. And if we could go down to the entry for May 11. Ms. Lottie, we looked at this. You looked at this entry earlier today, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention to just a couple lines down, it says, client discussed her birthday trip to Coachella Music Festival. Trip was April 22nd, 2016 through April 24th, 2016. Client admits to illicit drug use during the trip and states she ingested mushrooms and MDMA simultaneously while also consuming alcohol, and states she vomited and was, quote, high for at least 24 hours straight, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Do you recall, well, first of all, do you recall Ms. Heard relaying this to you?
I don't recall these specifics that I state here in the note, but I remember sort of a conversation talking about the trip after they had returned.
And this starts out, client admits to illicit drug use. So am I correct that this is based on these notes, this is something Ms. Heard reported to you directly?
Again, I don't remember these specifics. However, my usage of client admits refers to the client reporting something to me.
Had Ms. Heard ever admitted to illicit drug use to you before this time?
I believe in reference to my nursing notes from when I first met her, she alluded to previous substance use.
It says here, RN reminded client that illicit drug use will not be tolerated by medical staff and that any medications or drugs that are not prescribed can interfere and cause adverse effects with her prescribed medication. Client laughed and also reported using illicit drugs, mushrooms, and MDMA on May 9th, 2016, at home with a high-profile male acquaintance. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Do you recall Ms. Heard laughing in response to your reminder about illicit drug use?
No, I don't recall that.
In your time caring for Ms. Heard, did you ever see Mr. Depp physically abuse her? Did you ever see Ms. Heard physically abuse Mr. Depp? Did you ever see Ms. Heard throw anything at Mr. Depp in the time that you cared for her?
No, I did not witness that.
In the time that you treated her, did you ever see Ms. Heard lose her temper?
As we talked about previously, the one incident that I can remember is in London, 2014. Yes, 2014, in regards to her phone being hacked and sensitive material being leaked.
Did you ever feel that Ms. Heard was hostile towards you at any time during your treatment of her?
No.
Did you ever feel like she was ignoring attempts by you to contact her?
Yes, I have a general memory of not often, excuse me, I misspoke, of that happening on more than one occasion where I would reach out and not get a response. I remember feeling frustrated by that.
When had you treated domestic violence victims prior to this time?
The time that I worked with them was in nursing school. I don't want to say the specific place for confidentiality reasons, but it was for domestic violence victims. Sort of a safe house.
Ms. Wadi, do you remember when you were treating Ms. Heard that at some point she had a cyst on her eyelid?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
Okay. And do you remember that you had a procedure to have that cyst removed?
Yes.
And was that a surgical procedure to your recollection?
From what I recall, that was handled at an outpatient surgical center. Other than that, I don't know the details of that specific process.
Do you recall whether Ms. Heard had any marks around her eye after having that procedure?
I don't recall. I remember a topical ointment being applied, but I don't recall if there were marks on her eye or not.
At this point, the questioning switches back to counsel for Ms. Heard.
All right, thank you.
Do you see Pilates 93?
Yes.
Okay. And this is another picture of Amber from May 21st, 2016.
Correct. This is a picture of Ms. Heard.
And Amber sent you this text on May 21st, 2016.
I believe so, based on the timestamp.
And the same for this picture on the next page. Amber sent you this picture of her.
Correct.
And the same for this page, the next page. Amber sent you this picture of her on May 21st.
Yes.
When you saw Amber on December 17th, 2015, and you spoke about that, how long were you with her? Do you recall?
Don't recall. I would assume, based on the fact that I stopped by briefly, maybe an hour or two.
Okay. Did you go inside her house, or were you outside the door?
From what I recall, I was inside
Okay.
the penthouse, yes.
By the way, when you saw Amber on December 17th, was she wearing makeup or not? Do you recall?
I don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall.
All right, thank you. Before we get to the next witness, could I have counsel approach on the plaintiff's 46? All right, so plaintiff's 46 is in evidence. Your next witness? Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
Your
Dixon?
Honor. Plaintiff calls Michael Spindler.
All right, Mr. Spindler? Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case and penalty of law?
I do. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you state your name for the record?
Michael Spindler.
Where do you live?
I live in the Los Angeles, California area.
What's your occupation?
I'm a forensic accountant.
What do you mean by forensic accountant?
Well, a forensic accountant does accounting work that is a bit more investigative in nature. So it's essentially taking a look at business records and accounting records in connection with some form of business issue.
How long have you worked in that field?
I've been a forensic accountant full-time since 1990.
What'd you do before that?
Before that, I spent about 10 years doing auditing of financial statements.
Can you describe your educational background?
Yes, I graduated in 1981 from the State University of New York at Albany with a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting and a minor in economics.
Are you currently employed?
I am.
Who's your employer?
B. Riley Advisory Services.
What's B. Riley Advisory Services?
It's a national forensic accounting boutique firm that does forensic accounting, business valuations and appraisals, and bankruptcy and restructuring work.
How long have you been employed at B. Riley?
Since January of 2015.
What did you do for work prior to B. Riley?
Well, it's a long career, so I'll give you the highlights. I spent about 30 years with national accounting firms as partner at 2 different firms, and also was involved with a couple of forensic accounting boutique firms.
Okay. Do you hold any certifications?
I do.
What are they?
I'm a certified public accountant with licenses from 6 states: New York, California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Hawaii. I'm also certified in financial forensics. I'm a certified fraud examiner. I'm accredited in business valuation and a certified anti-money laundering specialist.
Do you participate in any professional organizations?
I do.
What are those?
Well, I've had leadership positions in a couple of them. I'll mention the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. I was the president of the Los Angeles chapter, and I'm currently on their board. I've been actively involved with the California Society of CPAs. I was the president of the Los Angeles chapter. It had 11,000 members at the time. Was also on Cal CPA Council, which is kind of their board of directors, and also member of the board of trustees of the Cal CPA Education Foundation.
Have you testified as an expert before?
I have.
Approximately how many times?
About 100 times, roughly. About half of that in trials and arbitrations.
What's your typical role in those cases?
Typically, it can take a number of forms, but commonly I will testify with respect to damages.
Have you done any film industry work?
Yes, I have.
What was that?
I've done work involving all the major film studios, and I've also done work on behalf of writers, directors, producers, actors, studio executives.
Your Honor, I'd like to proffer Mr. Spindler as an expert in forensic accounting.
All right, any objection? No objection. All right, so moved. Thank you.
What work did you do in this case?
Well, in this case, I was asked to take a look at issues with respect to lost earnings for Mr. Depp.
What in particular did you do?
I looked at accounting records that were produced by Mr. Depp's accounting firm, Ed White & Company. I looked at trial exhibits. I looked at deposition testimony. I looked at some trial testimony. And I've looked at various other documents and exhibits in connection with the case.
What specific period did you analyze with respect to lost earnings?
I looked at the period following the publication of the op-ed. So I looked at the period from December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020.
What materials did you review?
I looked at the accounting records that have been produced by Mr. Depp's accountants.
Any other materials?
Various deposition transcripts, trial testimony, contracts, etc.
What conclusions did you draw from your review?
I concluded that Mr. Depp suffered lost earnings of approximately $40 million.
How did you reach that conclusion?
Well, there are really two main components to that. The first relates to the loss of the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates 6 film. So the loss related to the loss of that role in that franchise picture was $22.5 million based on testimony provided by Mr. Jack Wiggum. In addition, we looked at, yes?
Did you do anything else with respect to Pirates 6?
Well, we also calculated the net earnings that Mr. Depp would have received from that.
Okay. And what did you base your analysis of Pirates 6 on?
Based on the testimony of Mr. Jack Wiggum.
Okay. What else did you do with respect to the lost earning analysis that you did?
Well, the other main component to this is taking a look at all the other roles, the non-franchise films. So those films, studio films, independent films, and endorsements that Mr. Depp realizes and enjoys. So in connection with that, we looked at his bookings for the year 2017. And by bookings, I mean instances where Mr. Depp is hired for a project. And he receives that first money related to that project in 2017. So, in other words, you've got a deal, and cash has showed up, so it's real. So we looked at his 2017 bookings, and we calculated for that year, for that period, his bookings were about $17.5 million. The main components of that, Mr. Wiggum testified to. We then looked at the period of time following the op-ed of December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020. So if annual earnings was $17.5 million in what is known as a typical year, a reasonable base year, at that rate, what would we have expected Mr. Depp to have earned from that period of October 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020? And we then compared that to his bookings, his actual bookings for that period of time.
Why did you use 2017 as a typical base year?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, Mr. Wiggum testified that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. And it's also the most recent clean year that was experienced. In 2018, you had the publication of the op-ed. That didn't happen in 2017.
Okay. Did you do anything, did you prepare anything to assist the jury with respect to the analysis that you performed?
We did prepare a chart, yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
All right. Yes, sir. Good.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I think this is Plaintiff Exhibit 1240. I'm going to, I'm not going to move it into evidence. I'm simply just going to use it, with your permission, to publish it to the jury so that the witness can explain it.
Any objection to demonstrative 1240? All right, demonstrative, well, do you have electronic copy of it? Okay, that's fine.
We do. Okay. Who did this chart?
I, in combination with people working under my direction from my firm.
All right. Can you explain to the jury what you've done here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, as we discussed previously, Mr. Depp lost the role in Pirates 6, and the effect of that was lost earnings of $22.5 million based on Mr. Wiggum's testimony. And then what we've shown here is the 10% agent commission.
So why did you deduct 10%?
Because that's the rate for Mr. Depp's agent. That's what his agent receives out of Mr. Depp's earnings in connection with setting up a project for Mr. Depp. So we deduct that 10%, which comes to $2,250,000, just 10% of $22.5 million. And the net effect of that, the amount that Mr. Depp would have received after deducting that fee, would have been $20,250,000. And that's the first component of this.
All right. What did you do in terms of the analysis of lost bookings for non-franchise films?
Okay, so that's the next section of the chart. And as I mentioned before, his 2017 bookings were about $17.5 million. So that rate of earnings over the period from mid-December through the end of October 2020, or mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020, would come to about $32.8, $32.9 million. We then compared that to actual bookings during that period of time of mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020. That amount was $10,586,000. We deducted those bookings, the actual amounts, from what we would have expected to arrive at his lost bookings for non-franchise activity, and that comes to about $22.3 million. And once again, we've deducted the 10% agent's commission. So the net effect, the lost earnings to Mr. Depp after that agent's fee for non-pirate films comes to about $20 million.
What does the figure at the bottom corner of the chart, the $40,318,237, what does that represent?
Well, that's your grand total. That's the sum of those two components for total lost earnings of $40.3 million.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Spindler.
Good morning.
So this lawsuit isn't the first time you've worked with Johnny Depp, is it?
It is not.
You've worked with him in a lawsuit that he had in the past with his old law firm, correct?
Yes, just a little bit of work, yes.
Okay. And so in this second go-round as a paid expert for Mr. Depp, you're making $550 an hour is what he's paying you? Is that right?
That's the amount that my firm bills. I do not receive that.
Now, the subject matter of your opinion testimony in this case is the economic damages that Mr. Depp has allegedly suffered as a result of Ms. Heard's December 8, 2018 op-ed, correct?
Correct, yes.
And this is the first case in which you've testified as an expert relating to economic damages claimed by an actor, correct?
First time I've testified to, but I've done that work before.
And you understand that this case is about only whether Ms. Heard's December 18, 2018 op-ed constitutes defamation of Mr. Depp, correct?
That's my understanding.
And you understand that this case isn't about anything else Ms. Heard has ever said or done, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And to be clear, you were testifying only as to alleged damages, right?
Correct.
So you are not offering any opinion or any testimony on whether those specific damages that you just discussed were caused by the op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
And you're assuming for the purposes of your report that the damages that you're testifying about were caused by Amber's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
So you're therefore not looking into whether anything else that's happened with Mr. Depp's life or career could have caused him economic damages, correct?
I believe that's generally correct, yes.
So you're not looking at whether the article published in the UK in June 2018 calling Mr. Depp a wife beater caused him the damages, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the lawsuit that he brought in the UK against the publisher of that article caused him those damages, right?
Correct.
You're not looking at any of the evidence that came out in that lawsuit about alleged instances of abuse against Amber, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the consequences of Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use have caused him the damages you're discussing, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the worsening performance at the box office of Mr. Depp's movies over time has caused him the damages that you're testifying about, correct?
Correct. And I'm not acknowledging any of this being accurate. I'm just saying that that wasn't part of my calculations.
Sure, I understand. I just want to make clear what you didn't look at, what you're not opining on. And so to round that out, you're not considering even the impact of Amber obtaining a restraining order in May 2016 and whether that may have caused him damages. That's not part of your opinion, correct?
Well, since we were taking a look at lost bookings using 2017 as a base year, any activity that preceded that would have been baked into those calculations that way.
And we'll get to those calculations in a minute because I'm going to put up the chart that you put in your expert report. But first I want to talk about Pirate 6 because that's basically the two components of your damages is Pirate 6 and then this non-franchise lost bookings, right?
Correct.
So for Pirate 6 specifically, you assume that he would have made $22.5 million on Pirate 6, right?
Correct.
And you took Jack Wiggum's word for it in making that assumption, correct?
I based it on his testimony, yes.
Now, you never saw a contract that Mr. Depp had for Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
Because no contract exists, to your knowledge, correct?
So far as I know, I've not seen one.
And you didn't take into consideration Jack Wiggum's testimony that Disney was non-committal about Mr. Depp being in Pirate 6 even before the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't take into consideration the press articles that came out prior to the op-ed that suggested that Disney had made a decision not to cast Mr. Depp in Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea whether Pirate 6 will ever be made, right?
I wouldn't know that.
And you have no idea if Disney has decided one way or the other whether Mr. Depp would be in it or whether they'd offer him a role in it if it is ever made, correct?
Well, my understanding is that they made a public statement that he would not.
Okay. And you have, if Disney decided that he wouldn't be in it, you have no idea when they decided that, correct?
I know that there was a public announcement subsequent to the publication of the op-ed.
What public announcement are you talking about?
I believe there was an interview of Mr. Bailey that was published several days after.
Oh, okay. Well, that interview of Mr. Bailey didn't say that he wasn't going to be in it. In fact, have you looked at the article that the jury saw the headline for yesterday, dated November 5th, 2020, about Mr. Depp potentially not being in Pirate 6? Have you looked at that article? I assume not.
No.
Okay. And you didn't take into account Mr. Depp's statement that he wouldn't do Pirate 6 for $300 million and a million alpacas, correct?
That sounded like hyperbole to me. I didn't take that very seriously. It sounded like somebody who was a bit hurt or in pain as a result of the loss of the role.
So if Mr. Depp didn't lose a role in Pirate 6 because of the op-ed, but he lost it for other reasons, then your damages opinion relating to Pirate 6 would drop to $0, correct?
I believe that's correct. If it's not lost for that reason, if it's lost for some other independent reason, then I think that would need to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Now let's shift gears and talk about the non-franchise earnings for a moment. You claim this number is about $21 million, right? Roughly.
20.
We'll pull it up. Well, actually, we'll look at the chart here. $20 million, about $20 million after agent fees.
Correct.
Right? Okay. And to reach that number, you looked at what his historical earnings records showed, right?
Correct.
And you got that information from Ed White's office?
Yes,
And you assumed that the information you got from Ed White's office was accurate, right?
I did, yes.
Can we please pull up the chart that's in his expert report? Your Honor, this is, or Mr. Spindler, I'd like you to take a look at this and confirm for the court that this is the chart that's in your expert report, if you would.
It appears to be, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this just as a demonstrative.
Any
No
objection?
objection, no.
All right.
So, Mr. Spindler, this chart shows Mr. Depp's earnings by year based on the information that you received from Ed White, correct?
Correct,
From 2009 to 2020.
yes.
And it shows that from about 2009 to 2019, and I didn't add these up visually, but from your report, you say that Mr. Depp made about $459 million, correct?
Correct.
Now, the two highest earning years in this time period were 2010 and 2011, right?
Yes,
You see that? You made about $70 million in 2010.
I do,
And
yes.
then the third highest year was 2014, right?
Yes.
Shade under 60 million. And you'd agree that from the period 2010 to 2020, his annual income on average was decreasing.
Yes, but you have to take a look at the components of this.
Right.
And
in
as
2000, I was just wanted to get your agreement that from 2010 to 2020, his annual income was decreasing. Now, in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2016, correct?
On an overall basis, yes.
And in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2018, correct?
Yes, just
After the
based on
op-ed.
earnings.
And in 2018 and 2019, he earned an almost identical amount, correct?
Yes,
And
just based on
2019 and
earnings.
2020 were both after the publication date of the op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to talk about some of these non-franchise earnings because when I looked at your chart that was displayed to the jury, I didn't see anything specific listed. So can you just confirm for me that you can't name a single lost business opportunity other than Pirate 6 that Mr. Depp lost as a result of the op-ed?
That's correct. That's not
And
the
you can't
nature of this
identify a
calculation.
single television, just if you could just answer my questions yes or no as best you can, please. You can't identify a single television project that Mr. Depp allegedly lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct. That's not the
And
nature
you
of this.
can't identify a single advertising campaign or marketing opportunity that Mr. Depp lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Right. These are the
And
calls
so
that he
it's
did not
fair to
receive.
say that for the lost opportunities that you can't name, you're assuming, as with Pirate 6, that those opportunities were lost because of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned something interesting in your direct and in your report. You say that you used 2017 as the base year to calculate what you claim Mr. Depp's should have earned in 2019 and 20, correct?
Correct.
And let's take a look at this because 2017 he made that much, correct? About 45 million or so?
Yes.
But in 2016 he made just a shade over 20, correct?
Correct.
2018 he made a shade under 20, right?
Yes.
Same with 2019, right?
Correct.
And then 2020, he actually made more than he had in the prior 2 years or in 2016 and made about what, 22, 23 million or so? Is that right?
Right. But as I indicated, this
So-
is just based on earnings. You need to get behind it.
Right. So you said, there were a couple interesting things you said. You said that the most recent, that 2017, I want to explore why you relied on that. Now, first of all, you said that you relied on Jack Wiggum's testimony that 2017 was a reasonable year to use, correct?
Correct.
Despite the fact that 2017, he made more than twice as much as he's made in any year over the last 5 years, correct?
Yes,
And you
but when
say
you're
that
taking a
this-
look
you said that
at
the most
their,
recent-
if I can
No.
finish
you
this
answered
thought.
my question. No, well, I want to get to your thoughts because you said that one of the reasons you used 2017 was because it was you said, I wrote it down, the most recent clean year, right?
Correct.
And then I think you explained, you said because the op-ed was written in 2018, right?
Correct.
But the op-ed wasn't written until December 18th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
So the first, if 2017 was clean, then the first 352 days of 2018 were also clean, weren't they, sir?
If I may explain, Mr. Wiggum testified that for the first half of 2018, Mr. Depp chose to take some vacation time. Also, he chose to go touring in the summer with his band, and then he did a film towards the end of 2018. With the publication of the op-ed in December of 2018, that would have impacted the prospects for that film that was done in 2018. So he chose to do just the one film in 2018. And then the impact of the op-ed on that film would have meant that it was not a clean period. You could not have looked at that film to get a good sense of what his earnings should have been because he didn't have the chance to earn box office bonuses or
Okay,
profit participations.
Well,
So that's why 2017 is a much, much better year to use than 2018.
Well,
And
let's
also when
break
you
that.
take a
Let's
look
break
at the
that
bar
down.
for-
I think let's break that down a little bit. You said that 2017 was a much cleaner year, but isn't it also true that there were other reasons why 2018 wasn't clean? For example, the April 2018 article by Dan Wooten calling Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
That did occur in that year, yes.
The June 2018 lawsuit that Mr. Depp filed in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater, correct?
Yes.
And how about the October articles reporting that Disney had decided to move on from Mr. Depp and not cast him in Pirates 6, correct?
I'm sorry, what effect would that have had?
Well, it came before the op-ed, so it's another reason why 2018 isn't a clean year in your mind, correct? An article
No,
2
those
months
aren't the
before the
reasons
op-ed,
why-
an article
those-
2 months before the op-ed saying that Disney had decided not to cast Mr. Depp. That would also keep 2018 from being what you would call a clean year, correct?
I've described the reasons why I believe 2018 was not a clean year.
Okay. Now, you're aware, as we talked about, that Amber's op-ed wasn't published till December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
So Mr. Depp could not have lost out on any opportunities as a result of the op-ed prior to December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2017 as a result of the op-ed. Fair?
Fair.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2016 as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And so in calculating your damages, you didn't use 2016, you didn't use 2018, but you chose to use 2017, correct?
Yes,
And
for very
Mr.
good
Depp
reasons.
still made more in 2020 than he did in both 2016 and 2018 before the op-ed was published, correct?
Correct, and that's
Nothing
just
further.
based
Thank
on
you, sir.
earnings.
All right, redirect.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. You explained 2018. Why didn't she use 2016?
Well, first of all, 2017 was a more recent year. 2017 was a year in which Mr. Wiggum indicated that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. He had a studio film, he had an independent film, he had an endorsement deal. 2016 is further back in time. As I understand it, his earnings capacity for that year would have been just about the same or even higher than 2017, because there was an endorsement deal that Mr. Depp passed on that would have been worth a lot of money, according to Ms. Jacobs. So 2017 made the most sense.
Why did you ultimately use the method that you did to determine the lost earnings?
Because it just makes sense. It's the correct approach to take. You're taking a look at what Mr. Depp would have been expected to earn in a typical year, and then you're comparing that to the period of time where you're analyzing following the op-ed from December of 2018 through October 2020. So you're taking a look at what you would have expected him to earn. It's very simple compared to what he actually did earn.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Is this witness subject to recall? All right. Sir, since you're subject to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody, but since you are giving expert testimony, you're free to stay into the courtroom, okay, sir?
Okay.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
watch your step there. All right.
Plaintiff rests his case.
All right, plaintiff rests. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our morning recess. It may be a little longer because I have a few issues to take up with the attorneys, but then we'll proceed after that, okay? So please do not talk about the case and do not do any outside research, okay? Thank you. All right. Why don't we go ahead and take our recess till 11:45, and then I'll come back and entertain any motions at that time, okay? All right, thank you.